Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this conference today, which is actually the closing conference for the Proteus project. So it's with... Let's turn off. Technicalities. Is that working better? Great. Ooh, it is. So this is the closing of the conference, of the project by this conference, which is a great pleasure for us to show you the results today from the Proteus project, but also a little bit of a shame because the project is closing. We were just getting started. But we can talk about that throughout the day. What I'd like to do is to spend a little bit of time talking to you about what Proteus is. The nice thing about having so many friends here who have been here before is that you all know the project. The challenging thing is you've seen a couple of these slides before, and how do we present our project in a different way. But for those of you who haven't been part of the Proteus project, Proteus started in 2010, as Jenny said, in February, and the title is Product Service System Tools for Ensuring User-Oriented Service. So a little bit of a contrived algorithm there, or anagram rather, but Proteus is also a sea god, and which has certainly saved us through the project's 3.5–4 years. We close at the end of this month, and today we're focusing basically on the industry content of the project. We have a lot of academic content as well, but the audience here is predominantly the industry interest we're showing today. These are the companies we've had in the Proteus consortium from day one. I'm not going to go through them all in detail. We have these written down in a publication you can see, but basically spanning many different companies. All of them are component manufacturers of one type, everything from ship paints to ship motors and everything in between. And then I almost need to mention them all, since I've mentioned those two, but tank management systems and firefighting sprinklers, cranes, cabling, and so forth. All these companies recognize the need to become more service-oriented in their product development. As Jenny said, under the Proteus consortium, the last new build shipyard of any large-scale Odense steel shipyard closed, and all of these companies knew, and the statement was that we have the best components in the world, but also the biggest competition that we've ever seen in the world. How do we compete on a global plane? We could also see at the same time that the customer was asking more and more for service, and after-sales service was becoming increasingly important for these companies. On the basis of this, together with CBS and IPU and Danish Maritime as an organization, we looked at the Proteus consortium. First of all, we needed to understand why is product and service such a challenge, and why is looking at service development so important for us. If you take this picture here, this is a picture from an academic from 2007 from the US, and he basically charted both the US and Europe in terms of where does the GDP, the gross domestic product, come from in Europe and the US in terms of products and services on the one axis and material and information organization-based deliveries on the other axis. It should add up to 100%. Basically what we saw was that in 2007, just 11% of the GDP in the US and Europe was coming from material-based products, traditional manufacturing-based products, things you can drop on your toe, you could say, where 30 years ago it was 50%. We weren't producing, aren't producing fewer products, but the GDP share of those was reducing, or is still reducing. The dot-com boom through the 90s and 2000s, early 2000s, looking at what we call soft products, so information or organization-based products, is today, or in 2007 at least, accounting for just 9% of the GDP in Europe and in the US. And this was the big change and the changeover to soft products, as we call them, but still, altogether, 20% of the GDP in these countries is accounted for by what you could call as products. Material-based services, this could be spare parts, it could be after-sales maintenance and so forth, accounts for 30%, but look at the ways the arrows are going, also being pressured in a way. And the last one, this is the growth area for GDP in the countries I mentioned. 50% in 2007 of the GDP was coming from information or organization-based services. So knowledge-based business, you could say. And as I also said, we're not producing or consuming fewer products. It's just the share and the importance of these is becoming extremely important. This is basically the picture that we were painted by the Danish Maritime Organization on behalf of their member companies as well, that this was also the feeling and the case in the industry. We observed at the very beginning that many of the Danish maritime companies are operating after-sales service when we started, but many at cost or not at profit at least, a couple at a loss in fact. Service was still the key to more product sales in a world where, as you can see here, the opposite was actually happening. So service was basically being used in many organizations, and not just the 10 that we started with, but many traditional manufacturing-based organizations. Service and after-sales service is seen as being, how do we sell the next product? We'll give some service with it. But in fact, this is the reducing part, and this is the increasing part. So we need to look the opposite way around. We could see in the companies we looked at that there was no systematic service development examples. And then the questions were being asked, how do we create business-based, so service-based business models for our companies? And how, finally, do we organize ourselves to be able to develop service-integrated products? And what do our products look like when we integrate service thinking into the product development? What new sensors do we need? What new modules do we need to build up? And so forth. So this is the picture that we started the consortium with in 2010. Previously I've shown you pictures of, those who've seen these presentations before, pictures of how we've intended to, or how we've actually been planning to do the project. Now we can look at the other end and look backwards and say, this is how we built the world. So I'm going to show the project from the other perspective, the approach that we took in the consortium. And we're focusing here mainly on the industry results today. We saw the need, we were outsiders to the maritime branch, and we saw a need and an opportunity to come in from the outside and do an analysis from a fresh perspective. We could see that Denmark is a leading branch in the maritime component supply industry, but also in the, of course, the ship owners industry with respect to quality and efficiency. Many of you have seen this. We launched this book in March at our conference. This was our maritime branch analysis, and that's out in the entrance, so you can take that and read that if you don't already have a copy. In our discussions with the companies in the Proteus consortium, they were asking, well, we need to see examples of other companies which are best practice in this area. What do other industries do? So we took a careful look at different industries around, both all business to business. But we took 3 cases, and we could see 2 main themes. One, it's difficult. But if you do it, and this is a long haul, all 3 companies we looked at, it took them 10 years to, in fact, change from a purely product to an integrated product service organization. But the benefits are considerable. Those learnings we've captured in the casebook, which is also available, which we launched in March. The third thing we did was to say, okay, if we decide that we need to servitize, as these companies in the Proteus consortium did, how do we do it? And some of them maybe aren't ready to servitize yet. Every company we study is different in their approach, and different in their experience, and different in their needs. This was captured in the first book that we're going to launch today, a so-called readiness manual. I'm not going to tell too much about these, because there will be nothing left to talk about the rest of the day. The fourth one is to say, how do we actually go about designing and developing a product service system? What does our physical product look like when it comes into a service situation, when we become responsible for the product over a longer period of its life? So we've created a comprehensive set of tools and methods. In fact, we've taken 11 out of quite a few that we reviewed. 9 of those 11 we've developed ourselves throughout the Proteus project. And we're going to show you a couple of those today. Fifth approach, how do we organize the company for PSS, product service systems? how do we organize to be able to develop successfully and strategically place our organizational bricks in place. Then we saw that a lot of different insights from the understanding of the companies here, and then we've taken this into an organization book. Sixthly, we've looked at what can PSS partnerships give. Many cost savings and many energy savings. We have a partnerships book. And then finally, if we believe all this, can we actually make a business out of this? Does it really work for us? And we've spent a lot of time looking at creating business models and presenting some provocative business models for you to consider in workbooks. This afternoon I'm going to talk a little bit more away from the Proteus workbook series, but also towards our academic achievements. They haven't at all been shadowed by this industry approach. We've had 25 publications and another 10 or so in the pipeline, 3 PhD projects. We're very proud to say we've had 6 bachelor projects and 10 master projects connected to this project. 2 conferences, this is number 2, and then a lot of tools, amongst others, the PSS configurator, which we'll show you very shortly. So today is basically a launching of the final 5 workbooks in the series. The first 2 are out there, and these are going to be dotted around the program, and you can see in green on your program where we're going to introduce these. Very briefly, to show you, shortly we're going to have a presentation by our head of department, Nick Carlson, who's going to tell you, put the context of our maritime research in general into perspective from a DTU perspective. Then the Minister for Science, Innovation and Higher Education is going to address what is this research area and what is the future for this research area. And I'm very, very pleased we've taken one more case from a different industry, and I think the most well-known case, Power by the Hour, Rolls-Royce being one of the key cases for product service systems, and Bill Morris has kindly come over to talk to us about how Rolls-Royce's journey has been as well. Then we'll introduce the tools book before lunch, and in particular one tool which we're very, very proud of and we're excited to have you try out. After lunch we're going to look at the readiness and say, how do you gauge if you're ready to take this servitization journey? And then a presentation from Danilek, who hasn't been a part of the consortium, but is an example of the way in which the consortium has actually broadened out quite considerably, and the relationships we've built up over the couple of years of the consortium, and give us a nice case from how Danilek is building their systems and realizing the service and the product. Then we're looking at organization and partnerships at the same time in the same short introduction presentation from our side, before leading on to presentations from 2 of our Proteus companies, Williamson Technical Solutions and Alfa Laval, who are going to give their experiences with organization and partnerships. After another break, we're going to look at the business model part of it, how to make a business out of this, and again, one more new partner in the project, the ship owner Torm, are going to tell us how they're planning to use this type of an approach, and we'll tell you a lot more about that detail later. At the end of all that, you get a pack of 5 books, so you have to stay to the end. It's a cheap trick, I know. But it's also for logistical reasons, and then we'll invite to drinks later on. What we'd like to see you do today is we'd like to share our insights with you. We'd like to gauge about our achievements, and please be open and frank. I know that many of you are. We'd like to consider how to implement our results and consider future collaborations together with us. And of course, not least when we say cheers to each other at the end, we'd like to thank you for some good years of collaboration so far, as we put. We'd like you to contribute to the discussion, tell us what you think, use the data network, of course, and then tell us the ideas of the next project after Proteus today. Breaks and lunch are going to be held outside. Handouts all are available on the day, at the end of the day, but also online on our website. Follow-ups and feedbacks, we'll talk about that later on today. There's no such thing as a free lunch. You've all got some sort of a form to sign, and that's a timekeeping form for us to show what type of industry collaboration we've had on the project. But I think you've all done that so far. So, look out for some of us on the Proteus consortium. The core staff are here, so we've got dark blue badges on if you'd like to speak to us about any more of the information on the project. 3 permanent staff, 3 PhD students, and 3 consultants, altogether 9 hard workers, but there's a lot more people behind that, and I'll open up to that this afternoon in some more detail. So, without further ado, I'd like to welcome you all to the conference and welcome Henrik Carlson to tell us a little bit of the perspective of our research at DTU in the new DTU Maritime Centre for research here. Thank you for your attention.